Good crowd out there. Looking forward to hearing from a few people here today. Before we get started, I'd like to know, is there anybody that would like to introduce any bills? Do we have any introductions here? I do not see any. Okay. Where's Mindy? Mindy, are you passing out the minutes, or have they been passed out? Yeah. Okay, so you should have the minutes then on your desk. Would like to see if I can get a motion to approve the minutes. And
Thank you.
Speaker recognizes my ranking. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second. Do I have and we have a second from Representative Penn. With that, we will be moving right along here. We have an informational briefing for 911 dispatchers. And with that, I'm showing both Emily Nichols and Scott Eckberg. Whichever one would like to come up first, you have the floor. Thank you. Can you please turn the microphone on?
All right.
There you go. Thank you.
Helps. All right. Good morning. I'd like to apologize. I have a slight tickle, so I'm going to try and go through without dying in front of you. So, Chairman Delper Dang and members of the House Energy Utilities Telecommunications Committee. My name is Emily Nichols, and I'm the past president for the Kansas Association of Public Safety Telecommunicators. I'm also the director of emergency communications for Dickinson County. I've been a public safety telecommunicator for over 20 years, and I am here today to educate you a little bit on what 911 is and kind of what we do. 911, is fairly young in comparison to law enforcement and fire and EMS. The first hospital-based EMS was established in 1865 in Cincinnati. Ben Franklin established the first fire department in 1736 in Philadelphia. I apologize. And the first police department was established in 1845 in New York. The first 911 call was made on February 16, 1968 in Haleyville, Alabama. By 1976, only 17% of the United States used 911. By 1987, 15% of the United States utilized 911. At the end of the 20th century, nearly 93% of the United States had access to 911. But now, in 2023, there are still areas in the United States that do not have access to 911 at all. Oklahoma is one of those places. Just to the south of us, there are citizens in counties that do not have access to 911. But why does Kansas care? We care because Kansas public safety telecommunicators are the ones answering those calls. October 1st, 2001 began the FCC's implementation of the automatic location identification that provides public safety answering points location information to cell phones. Thank you. As cell phone technology has progressed, so has 911 and our ability to locate callers quicker and more accurately. 911 has evolved very quickly on the technology side. But public safety telecommunicators that operate the systems are still being treated in an antiquated way. The start of the 911 public safety telecommunicators career was generally as secretary or clerical. Sometimes working in dispatch was and is still used today as a punishment for law enforcement. So sorry. Like law enforcement, fire, and EMS, public safety telecommunicators have a specific job function. Almost every call for service starts with a PSAP, whether it's traffic stop conducted by law enforcement or a house fire. Everything goes through your public safety answering point. Our day-to-day is not just answering phone calls. Many centers, like mine, do everything. We answer 911 and administrative phone calls. We answer text messages to 911. We provide video to 911 services, and we handle all emergency and non-emergency radio traffic for law enforcement, fire, and EMS. We also remove all warrants, missing persons, articles, guns, and protection orders in and from the National Crime Information Center database. Many PSAPs in Kansas vary in how they operate and what job functions they provide to citizens. Let us take my PSAP for example. We are a 2-seat PSAP. That means we have 2 public safety telecommunicators on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We provide emergency medical dispatching protocols. This means our public safety telecommunicators can talk someone through CPR, childbirth, the Heimlich maneuver, how to control bleeding, and other various instructions. We go through a specific list of questions picked out by our county medical director and our EMS director. These questions assist our medics by gathering specific information on a particular ailment, such as a fall, traumatic injury, or breathing difficulty, just to name a few. The answers to these questions paint a picture for our responders, so they can anticipate their needs when they arrive on scene. However, some of our surrounding agencies do not provide this type of service. Kansas has no standards for training and no standard of care throughout the state. Lack of training and standards has made working as a public safety telecommunicator difficult. Many agencies do not even have a training program. That matters when PSAPs do not have the staffing to cover their shifts. They cannot just reach out to anyone to come in and cover the dispatch. The lack of consistency also makes it hard for a tactical dispatch response team to be used in an emergency such as a tornado. With law enforcement, fire, and EMS, it can be easier for someone from another agency to step in and cover those shifts when needed. For example, during COVID, the Ness County 911 director lived in their dispatch center for 30 plus days because they didn't have staff to work the shifts. The director had to have their spouse bring them clothes and groceries. They didn't feel that they could reach out to anybody for help, so they suffered alone. And we can look at other PSAPs around the state who use their public safety telecommunicators as corrections staff, cooks, transport officers, babysitters for children that are brought in from an arrest or an accident. Many of the public safety telecommunicators are not trained to do these tasks, but are mandated to do so by their agency. They're expected to handle all 911 calls. I apologize. They're expected to handle a 911 call from a parent who woke up to find their baby dead. They have to send the medics and the first responders. They have to attempt to calm the parent down. They have to attempt to calm them down enough to start life-saving procedures if they provide them. If they do not provide them, now they're transferring this hysterical caller to another agency, all the while having to start passing out breakfast or dinner or meals to inmates. And we know staffing is hard for everybody right now. Kansas employs approximately 1,500, there's a typo, I apologize, 1,500 public safety telecommunicators at full staffing. There are very few agencies that are fully staffed. It takes at least 24 months for a public safety telecommunicator to be seasoned enough. By this, we mean confident, has handled enough calls to make good judgment decisions, etc. But the current lifespan of a public safety telecommunicator is 18 months. Many cite the shift work, type of calls, and treatment as reasons for leaving. With no PTSD or PTSI assistance, many of the calls they handle cause mental stressors that they just cannot handle. Just like our responders, who have to see certain scenes, homicides, suicides, domestics. Our public safety telecommunicators have to hear that. They hear the gunshots, they hear the beatings, they hear the screams for help. Many of them live in the communities that they serve. So they personally know some of these people who are calling, and they have to listen and wait. Our public safety telecommunicators need people that will stand up for them and make certain they are included in legislation that they should be included in with our first responders. 911 public safety telecommunicators are the first responders. We are that calm voice when citizens call and are possibly having the worst day of their lives. We only ask that you take a stand with us. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Just a question to you is, Mr. Eckberg, are you going to speak also? Okay. Why don't we have him speak and then we'll just take questions for everybody. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. I am Scott Eckberg, Next Generation 911 Administrator for the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council. The council is constantly looking for ways to enhance the Next Generation 911 ecosystem to benefit the emergency communication centers and public safety telecommunicators across the state. Unfortunately, like you just heard from Emily, there are some issues within the PSAP that technology cannot address. And we, as a council, support APCO, the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, and the National Emergency Number Association, NENA, in their efforts to bring those issues to you and to find, in concert with those groups, a means of addressing the issues. The absolute best technology that we can bring to bear on 911 is worthless without those people that sit behind that technology and drive it. So it's extremely important. The council is tasked by statute with supporting the technology needed to receive, process, and dispatch 911 calls, leaving the operational aspects of that process to individual emergency communication centers. And for that reason, my remarks today will focus on technology and not on the operational issue. What is Next Generation 911? In the simplest terms, Next Generation 911 is a replacement of an antiquated analog legacy 911 network with an all-digital, high-speed, data-centric network. It's an evolving technological ecosystem that captures the technologies of today, but also provides a foundation to add new technologies for tomorrow. The upgrade allows emergency callers to communicate with emergency communication centers in the way that they expect, while speeding the response time to their crisis. The council was charged with leading Kansas to Next Generation 911 by the Kansas 911 Act in 2011. As a means of meeting this duty, the council procured a statewide NG911 system as a service. The service is the most cost-effective approach to the migration to Next Generation 911 that exists. The network design requires a fraction of the equipment and associated network circuitry. As a conservative estimate, the cost of our statewide system is less than 1/3 of the cost if all 106 emergency communication centers that are on the system now would go out and make that migration on their own. So it's very much a cost-effective model. Acceptance of the statewide system has been exceptional. We have 2 emergency communication centers in the state outside of the MARC region, which the MARC region, because of their cross-border interaction with the Missouri counties, we kind of treat them as a separate state because of that cross-border thing. We work together with them to ensure that what we're doing aligns with what they're doing so that we don't isolate ourselves from them. But outside of those counties in the Mid-America Regional Council, that Kansas City metro area system, we have 2 in the state that have not adopted the statewide system. I don't think any of us, when we started down this path, anticipated that it would truly be a statewide system, but it is right on the threshold of being statewide, with the exception of the MARC counties. Our first ECC went live on the Next Generation 911 system on August 26th of 2015. Since that time, over 5.7 million 911 calls have been handled on the system. We're currently in the process of completing a network upgrade to AT&T switched Ethernet. This upgrade will provide increased bandwidth for all of our emergency communication centers, offer a second level of redundant connectivity between the center and our call handling host equipment, and uses band 14 spectrum, which is the spectrum that the federal government set aside for public safety broadband. Only public safety broadband users are on that network, and so it gives us increased bandwidth because of that dedicated spectrum for our LTE backup or redundant connectivity. The migration to ASE, given all of that, adding a commercial broadband connection as another level of redundancy, the band 14 utilization, and the increased bandwidth. We're able to do that at a cost that is very much comparable to the AT&T virtual private network that we started out with. So increased bandwidth at the same cost. It's a pretty good deal. As a part of that migration to ASE, and one of the driving factors behind it, all of the centers are being offered the choice to turn on streaming video into their PSAP. That option stays at the control of the public safety telecommunicator that's answering the calls. They decide if they want to see video, and if they do, they send a request to the caller, ask them to accept a link, and it turns on the phone and streams the video from the phone right in so that the telecommunicator can see it. That's a lot better than just having to accept whatever video I might decide to send to 911, because you're probably going to see stuff you never wanted to see if you just accept anything that comes in. So it leaves control of that video in the hands of the telecommunicator. The growth of the system necessitated the addition of a third call handling host. A benefit of that third host is that we can offer host redundancy to our larger PSAPs. So the primary host that they're connected to, if we would lose that host from some unforeseen event, there's two sides to each host. So there's already redundancy in place. But if both sides were to fail, those large PSAPs, because of their call volume, we can't just roll them to another PSAP. Their call volume would totally overwhelm any other, especially Sedgwick County. Their call volume would overwhelm any other PSAP in the state. So with those big ones, with the addition of this third host, we actually give them the ability to run a piece of software that reconfigures them for operation on the other host. So that if we would lose both sides of their primary host, they switch over, and within a matter of minutes, they're back up and running on that other host. Another enhancement of the system that was added in 2022 was automatic abandoned callback. Automatic abandoned callback, if someone calls a 911 center and they hang up before it's answered, that call is considered an abandoned call. Without automatic abandoned callback, the dispatchers have to call that number back and make sure it wasn't an emergency. So with automatic abandoned callback, the system does that for them. Calls the caller back, plays a recorded message saying, if this is an emergency, press 1. If it was a mistake or a misdial, press 3. And they respond to that. If they press 1, they go back into an active 911 queue, and the call is answered as soon as it can be. If they press 3, then the call is disconnected and ended. Saves a huge amount of time, because the majority of those abandoned calls are misdials. Somebody pocket dials or kid playing with the phone or whatever. It just saves a lot of time for the telecommunicator. You know, Emily talked about the stress that comes with taking a call and hearing what the caller is reporting. I don't think there can be too fine a point put on that. You get that call, you experience what the caller is going through until you get responders on the scene and you end that call. At the end of that call, that's all you know. You know the units that have arrived, and you'll know when they cleared the scene, but that's it. There is no closure to that call. And that is huge on the mental state of our telecommunicators. Back in 1985, the average lifespan of a telecommunicator was 7 years. it's dropped to 18 months. You know, the number of calls and the severity of the calls has increased over that time. It's a national crisis. Our emergency communication centers all across the country are all understaffed and overwhelmed. And anything that you can do on behalf of our public safety telecommunicators and emergency communication centers, we will support wholeheartedly, and we'll continue to support APCO and NENA in their quest to find those answers. That's all I have, and I would stand for any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate you both doing it for any questions. Representative Slangen-Ziepen.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for your testimony here this morning. In 1 month, I will have served 24 years as a law enforcement chaplain here in Topeka, Kansas. I have been with dispatchers in a room when they were talking to a woman who was fearful of being killed by her husband hiding in a locked closet. And then that was all on speakerphone because everyone was focused on this incident. And before officers could arrive, he shot and killed her with everyone in the room listening to that. I've been in the room with you when we've had officers shot and killed, and there were five officer line of duty deaths in the time I've been there. I want to stress to all of you that this is a real thing that they're talking about. You cannot put too fine a point on this. We are just as understaffed here as anywhere else, and your averages for working in this position are absolutely dead on. And anything that can be done to support you in comprehensive ways is very, very important. I just want to express my deep appreciation of the work that you do. I've seen it firsthand, and it's absolutely amazing. You save lives, and you help officers every day to do their job well, and you help citizens. Just 2 weeks ago, you helped a member of my congregation escape a suicide attempt. We didn't know her number, but you found her and got somebody there to help her in time. It was absolutely amazing. So what you have to deal with is real, and I appreciate being able to hear that here today. And from a tech side, anything that can be done to support you ought to be done. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you, Representative. I'd also like to just point out that the director of Ford County is here, and the officer involved shooting that occurred in Dodge City yesterday, that is his department. He is here to support us today as well.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Good comments. Representative Carmichael, did you have a question there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for each of our conferees, if time permits. And I do appreciate Representative Schligen. I'm sorry. I've only known you for 20 years, but I do appreciate your perspective and remarks. They're beneficial. Ms. Nichols, when we talk about PSAPs, public service access points, otherwise known as dispatch centers, as I understand it, those locations are not run by the State 911 Council or Scott's organization, and they're not paid for by the State 911 Council, but rather the funding for places like where you work that we refer to as PSAPs. That funding comes from perhaps federal grants and otherwise, but it's controlled by the locality, whether it's the chief, whether it's the sheriff, whether it's the Department of Emergency Services. And so your money, your funding, hiring decisions, all of those things are separate, I believe, from what the 911 Council does. Is that generally correct?
Yes, Representative.
Microphone.
All right.
There you
Yes,
go.
Representative, you are correct. But we do have a working relationship with the 911 Coordinating Council. We're all in 911 together. That's why we're here together.
Right. The reason that I ask is I want to make sure we understand that budgetary matters, that money that goes to the 911 Council doesn't pay for your salary or your staff. That's something that comes from the locality's funds or other sources. Is that generally correct?
That is correct.
And then if I might, Mr. Chair, a question for Mr. Eckberg. As you may recall, about 5 years or so ago, the 911 Council brought us a budgetary request for an increase in the 911 tax, or it's sometimes referred to as a fee, that we see on landline telephone bills as well as cellular or mobile telephone bills. We had quite the debate on the House floor. The chairman was very much involved in that. We cut back the request. The Senate then added some of the funds, but you did not actually receive the full funding request roughly 5 years ago. Am I recalling these things generally correctly?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so now we're 5 years out with part of the increase that you asked for in funding. Can you tell us where the 911 Council is on its total revenue versus its total expenditures?
Our total expenditures runs about 12 million, just a little less than 12 million a year. And the amount of revenue that we're generating from the 23 cents that the council gets runs about 15 million. So at this point in time, we've been able to control our expenses and keep that within the 90-cent fee that we ended up getting. A big part of that is because the technology that we were able to find in Rapid Deploy, which is our mapping system and provides video, it provides outbound text, it provides a lot more than just the mapping service. Those were all items in our budget that we thought we were going to have to cover the expense for. But with Rapid Deploy, they've added those things to their platform at no additional cost. So that's been a real cost savings for us in finding Rapid Deploy and getting those additional, what we call I3 enhancements, to the system at no additional cost.
And I do appreciate the negotiating skill or whatever was done to persuade our vendors to charge us a more reasonable price than what we had at first anticipated. But as I understand what you're saying, we're running about $3 million a year to the good or in the black. We're bringing in about 15 million. We're spending 12 to 13 million. So do you have carryover balances now that are accumulating?
Yes, sir.
And do you have a handle on how much the accumulated balance is from prior year's surpluses?
I don't have that number right.
Yeah, and I should know too. I'm on the council. That's
Yeah.
why I'm asking you. Okay. At your convenience, would you shoot me an email and let me know?
You bet. Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to echo Representative Sigmund's comments because in our community as well, our dispatchers go above and beyond many times, and so I appreciate all you do. Question for Ms. Nichols. You mentioned training standards are not, we don't have those in Kansas.
No, sir, we do not.
How do many of the other states have those kind of standards for their communicators?
Several states do. Washington, Oregon, Missouri, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York, Florida, to name a few.
And are those done through statutory
Yes.
methods? Okay. And then one other quick question for Mr. Eckberg. Going back in history again, Representative Carmichael was relaying the comments on the increase in fees. Have there been any, I remember this is probably 3 or 4 years ago, there was a significant 911 outage in various parts of the state. Have there been any similar outages the last couple of years?
There have not been outages that affected multiple PSAPs. We did have one in Sedgwick County, where that's a big deal anytime. You know, their call volume is such that if they go down, that's an issue. But it was an isolated issue to them. It was a maintenance event. AT&T mistakenly rolled the calls from the 911 lines over to an admin system that they have for backup. And it's a system that they don't use day to day. And when those calls rolled, they didn't realize that they had rolled over there. And so they went unanswered.
And what was the duration on that?
About an hour and a half, I think, before they realized that that was the case, and they got logged into that other admin system and started taking the calls.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Representative Chuck Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate your callback number. 25 years ago, I had a deputy show up at my door. And I said, you know, how are you, deputy? And he goes, well, we just got a 911 call from here. one brother hit another brother. And he called 911. So, but they followed up, and I appreciated them. Boy, that was, you know, if somebody, you know, that callback is very important. Do you guys, you know, I've done it a few times, a deer or a bale of hay or something on the highway. Is that a good call?
Yes, I would say that it is. I mean, you might want to ask the other directors whether it is or not. But in my opinion, that is a good call, because you've got an obstruction on the highway that, you know, that call may save somebody else from hitting that. So, yeah, I would say that's a valid call.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Carmichael, I think you had a follow-up.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Mr. Eckberg, in response to Representative Schreiber's question, you discussed those prior outages. I think we ought to let people know that following those events, we went through a several-month task force investigation of reliability issues. I think 10, 11, 12 meetings, if I recollect. A lot of soul searching and wire brushing was done. And we issued a report with findings and recommendations. And I don't mean to say there was a cause and effect relationship. Across our fingers, we haven't had a major outage since.
That's correct.
But as with all things technical, we can't make a guarantee that this system will be absolutely flawless every day in the future. And so I think we see cities or communities like Sedgwick County who are implementing some backup notification type systems to citizens and a number of other things to try to provide redundancy in those instances where the network fails us. Is that all generally correct?
Absolutely.
I appreciate your efforts, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And it's a great point, Representative, that every time we have any anomaly on the system, we try and dig into it as deep as we possibly can. That one probably was the deepest we dug on any of them, but we're always looking for ways to make the system more redundant, more stable, and anything that we can do, we do.
And I appreciate, by the way, the 911 Council's administration and staff's willingness to engage in what was a difficult process for all of us.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Very good. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here and for your presentation. My brother-in-law was a captain in the police department and was killed in the line of duty. And we were able to listen to the 911 dispatch calls. Their sense of calmness and urgency was just unbelievable. So for that, I thank you. My previous job, I was also the police and sheriff first responder liaison. So the PTSD issue is real. And I think that for you to even have to come and ask for help is embarrassing, and we've let you down as a community. So for that, I say I'm sorry, because I think we need to do more for that. And for the Dodge City people that are here, both, I am so sorry, and prayers to your blood and blue families. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Representative.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss.
Representative O'Hobson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, conferees, for your testimony. I have a question for Ms. Nichols with respect to just a follow-up of what Representative Schreiber had talked about in regards to training standards.
Yes, sir.
You said that there is none here in the state of Kansas. Is that correct?
Yes.
The other states do have.
Yes, sir.
How are they implementing their training standards?
Through legislation.
And in other words, are they sending the training standards to like localities, or are they working with community colleges to train these people? How are they?
Most of these states, excuse me, most of these states, with the exception of Missouri, have a statewide 911 program, just like KLETC for the state of Kansas. They have an academy that they go through and they become certified. And then everybody does the exact same thing throughout the state. They have the same standard of care, the same training standards.
So do these people come to the training center in these states, or is it kind of like spread out, like throughout the states?
It's all through the state.
Okay. If I can. You also, I'm sorry, you also talked about in regards to abandoned calls. How does your center treat with respect to disabilities, those who are deaf or blind when they call the 911? If you can touch on that, does your center handle that?
We have a couple different avenues for the deaf and hard of hearing. TDD or TTY, a technology that's been around for a long time that's really kind of fallen out of use with everybody. We still maintain those capabilities within the system. So if somebody does use a TDD device, telecommunications device for the disabled, we can accept those calls. We can process those calls with text back and forth between the caller and the person. The other way that we can do that, and the one we're seeing used much more now, is text to 911, where it's a text conversation back and forth.
And you also mentioned if there's anything that we can do to actually help with respect to public safety in terms of getting people in. What are your recommendations in regards to what the legislature can do to help, fully staff or get people in? Is there anything that we can do? Your recommendations in terms of what we can do to get that achieved?
As Representative Carmichael pointed out, the funding is all local level funding. And 911 is competing against all of the other local government services for those general fund dollars that fund 911. If there could be a state grant program to those local units of government to enhance wages, I think that would be a great step. When you can have your choice between a job that's going to put you under stress pretty much for the entire shift that you're setting there, or you can go down to the quick shop and get a job as a counter attendant there and actually make more as the counter attendant than you can as a telecommunicator, that's a problem.
And one last question, Mr. Chairman. With respect to wages, what is the ballpark with respect to wages people are being paid for this particular? What's the ballpark? You don't have to give me an exact number, but what's the ballpark we're looking at?
Representative, it varies throughout the entire state. We have agencies that pay barely minimum wage. They get $8 an hour for a 12-hour shift to deal with the things that we have to deal with. And then you have other agencies that support their staff and they start at $22 an hour. So there's a huge difference throughout the entire state on pay.
So addressing wage issues will actually help increase staffing in these centers. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, if you would rather work for $8 an hour and listen to people, deal with their dead children or dead spouses or whatever, or flip burgers at McDonald's for $15 an hour, it's an easy choice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Representative Penn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam, my question concerns what you just discussed with the ranking member. And please clarify for me, the funding that you receive right now, your salaries and everything, are they paid by private industry or by the state and local government?
State and local government.
And those monies that you receive from the state and local government are raised in basically from the taxes that they raise inside of those localities?
Yes.
And across the state, have you all ever gotten together, the various agencies that you just discussed, and talked about the parity of those wages and how it is that they are actually meted out? Have you done that legwork?
That poses a slight difficulty. We have 57% of our 911 centers are under the direction of a police chief or a sheriff's office. And then you have some that are standalone. The problem is coming to the table with the police chiefs and the sheriff's association.
I would submit to you, madam, that would probably be a great place to start. Then come back to the committee and let us know what you've actually gotten done inside of that wheelhouse, so that we can have a better understanding of what's happening out there in the landscape. Some of us need to be informed of that, and I don't feel that I have that information at my disposal to make a decision on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Representative Berquist.
Thank you all for the information you brought today, and appreciate you being back and appreciate your attendance today. I just want to say that to be able to be the person that's calling 911 when your family member's dying is a great privilege anyway, because you know that with the greatest amount of effort, we had a response time that was less than probably 2 minutes, probably 2 or 3 minutes. And my son died in my car, but they were there. It seemed like almost immediately. And so I just, if you've experienced it yourself, people have mentioned it, but you don't realize how much you depend on the best thing happening at the worst time until you're personally experiencing yourself. I appreciate your dedication. I appreciate what you do. Wages are sometimes not the issue. It's a matter of the heart and what a person chooses to do with their life. And we appreciate that you've chosen to do that. Thank you.
I had a couple questions, but we're going to end it right there. So, we have dispatchers from around the state here in the room. Could you please stand up? I just want to see who's here. Thank you. Thank you, but thank everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. So we do need to get moving on, just watching the clock here. But committee, if I could, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. So committee, I had a little mess up earlier. We had a motion on the minutes by Mr. O'Hobson. We had a second by Representative Penn, but we never heard the body. That was my little mess up. So everyone for it, please speak up. Aye. Anybody opposed? Let the minutes reflect that. Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. Moving on for information briefing from Verizon, robocalls and 5G. There he is. We've got, is it Ely Venendal? Okay, welcome.
If you'd call me Ellie and my wife had heard that, she would have gotten upset. I don't get fazed anymore by it, first or last name, but yeah, luckily I don't think she's watching today. So we're probably I'm trusting she's not. But Chairman, members of the committee, grateful to be back here. I realized as I walked in that the last time I had the opportunity to come to Kansas was pre-pandemic. It was actually the last time I've actually traveled and been able to present to any committee. So thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to see people face to face. There's just such a difference when it's three-dimensional versus two. So thank you for the opportunity. As I said, my name is Eli Venendal. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for Verizon in Kansas and some of the surrounding states as well. Dina Fisk, who many of you know, is our local lobbyist here on the ground and represents us along a lot of our day-to-day work with each of you. I'm pleased to be able to provide an overview of Verizon, where we're at as a company generally, where we're going as far as our 5G technology goes, as well as highlight some of the areas in that technology that we're trying to move forward, and then touch lightly on our community impact, and then finish on a follow-up on robocalls, which we had discussed a few years ago. So as many of you know, Verizon is one of the leading technology and communication companies in the world for voice, data, video services, security. We have an award-winning network that crosses across all these different platforms. We delivered on our customers' demands for mobility, reliable network connectivity, security control. One thing that we noticed coming out of the pandemic that was, I think, exacerbated for many of us is the importance to have reliable network connectivity. And for Verizon, our customers always come first. To illustrate this and how we try to meet these challenges both before, during, and now post-pandemic, is to continue to invest in our network in a variety of different ways. This has benefited Verizon as in the first half of 2022, we are awarded the best overall network performance for network and performance reliability from Root Metrics for the 18th consecutive year. We also ranked #1 in accessibility call and text categories. This includes receiving the awards for overall performance in Wichita and tying for the best in Kansas City. And as of last week, we were also awarded for the 30th year in a row by JD and Power and Associates the best wireless network quality. So you continue to see that the efforts that we're putting into growing and making sure that our customers have a reliable connectivity is paying off for us. One of those areas that we've talked about through the years and we've all heard is 5G, right? 5G. So we are investing at Verizon a lot in our 5G experience. So at the moment, more than 2/3 of the national population in 2,700 cities across the country, including areas of Kansas, has access to Verizon's 5G. Our ultra wideband 5G uses millimeter wave and C-band spectrum to deliver incredible speed, reliability, and performance, not only for mobile, but now moving into home and business customers. For customers on the go, to give you an example, if from a mobility standpoint, our ultra wideband speeds are 10 times faster than our 4G LTE speeds. And we're continuing to invest across the country to have the network be more ubiquitous and being able to provide that type of mobility service. Powered by our 5G ultra wideband and our network, we have also invested in trying to be able to provide home internet as well. And so will be a continually evolving place that you'll see and hear from Verizon, from our fixed wireless access or fixed wireless service opportunities that we intend to continue to grow into. In addition to our 5G, we continue to provide strong 4G LTE coverage, and that's throughout the state. As we look at who our customers are, we care about all of our customers, but obviously we just heard from public safety, right? We're from the 911 PSAPs and the importance of them and our public safety personnel. And for Verizon, they're one of our key customers as well. So we continue to try to put their needs first and understand that they have unique needs that are different than even us, the consumers on the day-to-day front. So to that end, Verizon a few years ago developed our Verizon Frontline program that took all of our experience and nearly 30 years of technology and bringing in industry experts to put together solutions for public safety. This includes providing network priority and preemption for all of our public safety customers, a commitment to interoperability, real interoperability for them, and developing an innovative roadmap of products that they can continue to use and develop and meet some of the special needs that they have. And this is obviously all powered by the 5G network we're continuing to deploy. One key part of Verizon's Frontline initiative is our emergency response team. So I think we've seen over 2022 in particular, a variety of different catastrophic events. We've had winter storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires. It seems like every day we get something or hear something new. As part of our response, our teams have been able to provide mission critical services and devices in a variety of different scenarios on this front. For example, we've deployed over 750 devices and other capabilities to 750 public safety agencies in 2022. And this includes nearly 5,500 Verizon Frontline devices, ranging from repeaters, mobile spots. Obviously, sometimes you see what's called a cell on wheels or the cows and mobile sites that pop up in areas to provide some additional coverage, support, and capacity for those first responders on the ground. We're going to continue to invest in that. We understand that's such an important area for all of us, and we're committed to our first responders moving forward. In addition to all the investments that we make from a network standpoint, one of the areas that we feel very strongly about is we as a corporate citizen have a responsibility to society. So a few years ago, our CEO and laying out who our stakeholders were, we've always had our customers first, our employees, our shareholders, and he added society, right? We as a corporate citizen and have a responsibility and a deep-rooted commitment to providing help in these areas. So to that end, Citizen Verizon is our foundation agency that puts the framework for how we can leverage our resources, our technology, and our employees to focus on 3 areas in particular where we think we can add a benefit. That includes digital inclusion, climate protection, and human prosperity. Just want to take a minute to discuss digital inclusion because I think over the last few years, as we've seen the need for people to have not only access, but affordability to network and then training to be able to adopt the technologies that are out there. I think we've really focused on that being one of our key areas. In particular, Verizon has been working to close this digital divide and by 2020 to help build a better future by providing 10 million children with digital skills and training and 1 million small businesses with resources to help them thrive in the digital economy. Verizon's next-gen technology platform for grades K through 12 has hybrid learning models, provides resources to teachers and to schools, and we've committed through what's known as our Verizon Learning Program to really provide additional services to 350,000 unserved middle and high school students across the country. It gives them technology, connectivity, and an immersive kind of curriculum to help them close the digital divide. This is especially important in Kansas, as last year in Wichita, we were able to add 19 schools, public schools, and high schools joined this Verizon Learning Initiative. So in partnership with Digital Promise, who's the third party who goes out and identify the schools that we should support, and schools are able to apply, and then they kind of help us choose. They actually choose on our behalf, so there's a separation there, who we should go to. Wichita received 19 of these schools. And so what this means is that every student and teacher in these schools was equipped with up to a 4-year data plan, free device technology, and access to different trainings and support, with the opportunity to engage with the teachers and students in additional learning opportunities and getting up to speed on the technology that's out there. And then there's a wraparound part of the program that also provides support to parents to be able to leverage that as well. This is in addition to the variety of different products and things that we offer generally to all the public school folks. Last piece of the corporate responsibility, Verizon, like I said before, understands the importance of affordability and the challenge that can be to customers. So we support the Federal Communication Commission's Affordable Connectivity Plan, or ACP, as many of you may have heard. This was created to assist in providing services to eligible households to pay for internet service. So the ACP, or Affordable Connectivity Program, covers home and mobile plans with internet access. This includes whether you have our mobile or 5G home products or LTE home products, with up to $30 in savings per month with that plan through this program. As we continue to develop as a company, we obviously have a focus on all these areas, but I wanted to close by just touching back on robocalls as we were requested to do. So Verizon understands robocalls can be aggravating and sometimes intimidating disruption for all of our customers. I think we've all seen the numbers come up and you're like, whose number is this? Do I hit it? What do I do? And then you answer, and it has a variety of different situations. And so to combat robocalls, Verizon supported federal legislation to outlaw spoofing and shut down illegal robocalls. This legislation included the Trace Act, which was a big component for strengthening enforcement and allowing service providers to implement technologies, including the stir, shake, and call authentication technology to help prevent and dissuade robocalls. Verizon also backed the state attorney generals to develop a set of industry best practices, resulting in anti-robocall principles that were adopted by 51 state attorney generals. In addition to these efforts, Verizon is also, so we've got the federal laws and things that have been in place. We offer our customers a free auto-enrolled call filter technology. This application both detects and filters spam and empowers the customer to report suspicious numbers. So more specifically, this app blocks potential fraudulent calls by automatically sending them to voicemail, but it can also block unwanted or nuisance calls through the call filter app that the customer has the ability to go in and put in those numbers and block a suspicious number that comes in. If they do receive a spam or text call, they can also report it not only through the app, but voicespamfeedback.com, or they can just send a text from their mobile number to 7726, which is spam when you put it out there. So through these efforts, we've started to see some significant progress and results, reducing and protecting our customers against robocalls. So to illustrate, through the mid-2022, Verizon's industry-leading security capabilities have identified or blocked more than 26.5 billion unwanted calls for 82 million Verizon customers and millions of spam and text messages. This included 2.5 billion just from May to June 2020 alone. So that volume you can see of itself continues to be something that obviously we're still waiting to kind of see where the numbers came out through the rest of the year. But the efforts that we've put in, the federal legislation, the efforts we're taking are definitely having a positive impact for all of our customers when it comes to the robocall piece. So in summary, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to be here today, and we're happy to entertain any questions.
Representative Roth, go ahead.
Thanks for that information. On page 1, at the bottom of it, you've got a statement. It says it includes your most reliable network. So are there unreliable networks, and where are they located?
Well, I won't speak for unreliable networks. I'll only speak for the most reliable network, and that would be Verizon. So that's where I position that. But I can tell my T-Mobile counterpart really enjoyed that, Representative.
Representative Slingersieben.
A question. You talked about support of first responders. Do you happen to have a special plan like AT&T's FirstNet for first responders?
So our Verizon Frontline program is that program. And so it's, often we hear about what are the benefits of FirstNet versus something like Frontline. As we know, FirstNet is an option for first responders. It's not a requirement, right? And so Frontline was created, I think, in response to that a few years back, right? It's actually been in place for 3 or 4 years, but it provides not only the priority and preemption, which is so critical to first responders, right? Meaning if they're on our service, they're number one. Other people will get cut off if capacity is not there, and they're getting their calls in first, right? That's one of the key pieces that I know was important to first responders when the FirstNet legislation was passed from a state or a federal standpoint, and it's something that is built into our plan. In addition, we have not only the priority and preemption, interoperability, making sure that they can cross connect, which has been really important for first responders for years and years and years. Obviously got a lot of emphasis following 9/11, which kind of created FirstNet Authority itself. And then I think the biggest piece of it too of our program is continuing to innovate for first responders. So we've put together our committee that is a list of former first responders, retired, some may still be active, that are helping us to develop with our technology specific device capabilities and a device ecosystem for first responders to have additional tools.
Representative O'Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm over here. Thank you for your testimony today. Last year, that was your first year in terms of the innovative learning program. Is that correct? You guys rolled it out. Was it last year was your first year of doing that?
So we've done it for many years as Verizon. So we have Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, or VIL schools is the acronym used for across the country. This was the first time we've actually had them in Kansas, though, which was...
you guys actually focused in Wichita. Is that my understanding?
Yes, 19 schools in Wichita.
Is there, and I thank you for that. Is there any plans to expand that program statewide?
So the way that the program works is we partner with an organization called Digital Promise. So they are a third-party independent organization who goes out and, the short answer is schools can apply through Digital Promise for the program, and the Digital Promise, based on the resources we're able to provide, chooses those schools independently from us, right? And there's part of the reason for that is, contracting. We don't want any conflicts of interest, right? We want to provide support, but we don't want to show any favoritism. And so schools are always open to apply to the Digital Promise through Digital Promise, but it's hard to say who gets what where.
That's my question. I didn't know if school districts are actually know about this particular
Yeah.
Program, across our state to apply for it. That's why I was asking if there was any plans in terms of expanding that program throughout the state, to our school districts.
Yeah, I mean, my hope would be that there are other schools that have applied in Kansas and that through Digital Promise they get chosen. But we have no insight on that from just the Verizon side.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Say, I've got a question on the Affordable Connectivity Program that you mentioned. When was that created? Is it fairly new? It was the first part. Secondly, I wondered, it says it's for eligible households. Who does the means testing for it and who funds that? Thank you.
So the Affordable Connectivity Program was a follow-up program from the Federal Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. So we had coronavirus legislation that turned into the Infrastructure Act last year. Emergency broadband benefit generally was put in place to provide an additional subsidy for qualifying households. FCC sets that limit of what it is. I'm happy to provide the specifics for that. That EBB, or Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, turned into the Affordable Connectivity Program. They modified the subsidy a little bit for folks, but the requirements were generally still the same. I'm happy to provide more specifics on that if it's helpful.
Okay, and then the funding comes from the federal government, or
funding from the federal government? Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just a real brief one here, but I've got Verizon cell phone service, and I have, as far as spoofing, well, the issues I don't see on my cell phone. It's pretty clear as far as robocalls and so forth. But when you get to the landline, it's like I've got an advertisement free for all out there for spoofing, spamming, and scamming. And what's different? What filters are on the wireless network that may or may not be on the landlines?
I'd have to go back and look into that, Chairman. I'm not, being that we don't provide landline service in Kansas, I'm not quite sure what the difference that would be since we're only mobility.
Verizon does provide in other states.
Yeah, again, I'm happy to look into that a little bit because we would provide it out east, but I'm just not familiar with it.
Other than that, that's all the questions we got. So I appreciate you coming in and talking to everybody today.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Next up, Patrick Fusick with T-Mobile.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Similar subject here, so
absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and it's a nice ring to it. So congratulations on your new role. It's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself to the new members, and I look forward to working with a lot of the members that I've worked with over the years here on this committee. I'm Patrick Fusick. I cover 8 states in addition to Kansas. So similar to Eli, we have regions that we cover. Been doing that for many years, and it's great. When I'm not in Kansas, I've got great help from Sandy Braden and her team who represent me in the company. So I very much appreciate all they do. Like I say, it's great to be able to be here and give you a little bit of an overview of what T-Mobile's been up to recently. It's hard to believe, but in just 3 months, we're going to be celebrating our 3-year anniversary of the Sprint T-Mobile merger. So having been through that, not something I want to do again anytime soon, but it was a great experience for me, and I appreciate it, and happy to be part of the new Magenta team. So one of the notes of that is that, while T-Mobile was based in Bellevue, Washington, right outside Seattle, Overland Park's campus remains a vital part to our company. We have over 5,000 employees still in the state of Kansas, 5,355 to be exact. I just got the update from HR recently. So our commitment through the merger was to grow the company by 10,000 jobs in the first 3 years. And so, again, I'm happy to report that a lot of that growth is happening here in Kansas. We added over 400 new jobs since I last spoke to this committee last year. And just, looking at the headlines recently with all the tech layoffs that we've heard about, it's kind of really a good position to be in. We're adding to our overall payroll here in the state of Kansas. And I know we still have openings out there, like a lot of companies right now. There's a lot of open positions. So we're looking forward to try to fill those. Another benefit from the merger that has had an impact here in the state of Kansas is part of our massive 5-year commitment to bring 5G to rural America and hire over 7,500 new employees in rural communities and support economic development in small towns by providing $25 million in funding. Those hometown grants, as we call them, help local communities move forward on projects that build in the strength that make those places, have made them a great place to live and work. In the past 3 years, we have done 6 hometown grants up to $50,000 here in Kansas. And those went to the following cities: Yates Center, Fort Scott, Altamont, Extel, Pratt, and Hutchinson. And there's a link there if you need some more information I want to share with any of your communities about how they can apply for those. Like I said, we've got a lot more commitment coming from that funding, and look forward to doing more in Kansas if we can. In addition to that, we've also unleashed a lot of home internet. That's a real big issue these days, trying to get more competition in the home internet business, which is, again, a fixed wireless product that we have available to more than 40 million homes in the country, and a third of those are in rural areas. So, again, an emphasis on trying to get coverage where that coverage did not previously exist before we merged the companies. Again, it's all part of our goal to ensure that Americans from big city to small towns and rural communities across the country have access to all of our latest products, services, and technology. In the first year of providing this service, we have almost 2 million customers across the country. And again, a third of those new accounts are coming from the rural parts of the country. So we're happy to provide that service where there might have been, one provider, a cable or something like that, and now they've got choices. And we all know with competition, hopefully that'll bring down prices as well. So we also committed to building 600 new retail stores in small towns and rural areas around the country. And I'm happy to report in 2021, we had opened 4 new stores in Kansas, which was Hayes, Garden City, El Dorado, and Dodge City. In 2022, last year, we opened 5 new stores: Fort Scott, Parsons, Liberal, Iola, and Paola. And so far this year, we have 1 planned for Newton. In total, we have 27 T-Mobile stores, 35 of Metro PCS, which is our prepaid brand. And we also have our call center in Wichita, which is targeting to almost hire 200 people this year. I think we had, during the pandemic, everyone went home. So one was working to do call center work from home. So we're catching up. I think that facility is up to 700, capable of employing up to 700 to 800 employees total. With these additional 200 that we're planning to hire this year, we'll get up above 500, and that at the Wichita Call Center. So that's our goal there. Lastly, regarding our network, T-Mobile is committed to investing $40 million in the network over the first 3 years after the merger. And I can tell you that investment is taking place here in Kansas and across the country. This is evidenced by the fact that our 5G network now covers 320 million people across the country, and our fastest 5G service, what we call ultra capacity, that covers 250 million people across the country. And the combination of our high-speed millimeter wave spectrum, along with our mid-band spectrum and our extended range low-band spectrum, places us in a unique industry-leading position covering 5G across the nation. By the end of 2023, we expect to cover 300 million people with our super fast ultra capacity network. I'm going to diverge. I don't have this in my comments written, but I'm going to provide to the committee on the issue of robocalls. We had a great presentation yesterday. Nick and Lindsay did a great job on providing information to that committee about robocalls and scam calling. I just wanted to touch a little bit on what our programs are doing. And like you said, everyone has seen this. Everyone's landline, wireless. No one's really been able to be immune from that kind of just calls coming in. So one of the things that Eli mentioned it, and we heard again in the presentation yesterday, the Federal Trace Act was a big step in helping to curb that. And there was an AG task force. I think every AG office in the country, maybe except one, I can't remember, was involved in that. So from that came one of the technologies called Stir Shaken, which is a program that allows us to identify those calls before they come in and thwart them. So just some statistics regarding our system and what our capabilities. We had heard again from the presentation that they're the number one complaint to the FCC, scam or robocalls. And within our system alone, we've seen record highs in 2021, about a 116% increase from 21 to 2020. I'm sorry, from 2020 to 2021. This is a very large increase. What we have a product called Scam Shield, which is what every customer is eligible for this. It's free, business, residential, and it's a service that's available 24/7. That protects our customers against these type of spam and robocalls. And last year we had full data was 2021. We had blocked 21 billion calls in that year, and we expect that to probably to go up. And similar to what we've heard from Verizon as well. I think one of the real key things is this, this is catching those calls and blocking them and thwarting them and making sure they can't get through. And I think that boiled down to like 1.8 billion scam calls blocked each month, and it equaled 700 scam calls every second. So all plans, again, all our customers are covered with that. And we heard this yesterday as well, but the number one scam call seems to be these extended warranties, which I'm sure you've all about auto warranties. And I don't think I've had that many cars. And they say, we need to update your 5 cars. I'm like, I don't have 5 cars. But anyways, how that kind of scam shield process works is using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and potential technologies that analyzes the call and the behavior of the call and it protects the customers 24/7, responding to these new threats and updating the protections every 6 minutes in our system. So we're always looking for these threats to come in and then finding where those are and blocking those. So it's just a relentless amount of volume that we're seeing across the industry, not just in our network. Scam likely warnings will come onto people's phones, warning them that they are whenever they see that, it automatically appears, and every customer then can be that you're not going to get that call. It's going to come. You can just divert it. And most of us, obviously, you swipe and you're just saying no, you're not taking that call. We have free caller ID to every customer, so they can always get info on who is calling. And I mentioned the Stir Shaken program that all the carriers implemented. I think in total there was 15 carriers. So it's not just the big major mobile carriers, landline, small rural telcos. Everyone is trying to deploy or is I think mandated to deploy this type of technology. So I would just conclude that, like I said, we had a report from our full year of 2021, and we expect in the next 2 weeks to have a new press release talking about everything for 2022. So when I get that, Mr. Chair, I will provide that information to the committee so you have the latest, at least from what we're doing. And I expect we'll see an increase in that volume that we saw from 2020 to 2021. I'm sure 2022 will reflect the fact that there's a lot out there. But I think we're pretty confident in what the federal government's doing. And Mr. Chairman Olson talked about doing what we can to strengthen the current Kansas laws, and we definitely look forward to working with this committee on that effort and strengthening that. There are some laws in place, as we heard in Kansas, but again, if there's things we can do to increase those and enhance them, we look forward to working with everybody. So, Mr. Chair, happy to address any questions you have, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak to you today.
I appreciate you being here. I've always just kind of questioned as far as Kansas laws. Are there switching facilities in Kansas? I mean, we can do all kinds of things, but are the calls being switched within our borders? And if that's
it's a great question.
No, I don't know what we can do.
Well, like you've got our Lex, C-Lex, independent or incumbent Lex. The calls are coming internationally, and they're just going out through these different types of providers, including mobile. So I'm not sure. I don't disagree that it's not just a Kansas specific. There's a lot of international flavor to this whole problem.
Committee, any questions? Does not appear so. I appreciate both you guys being here.
Absolutely. Look forward to working with everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Committee, Thursday, we're going to get into pipeline safety from the KCC. Also going to hear from the Broadband Development Office. And we are getting real close to starting to hear some bills. So it's coming. Be prepared. I've got my committee assistant, Mindy, here, who has been clearing the schedule for February, and we're going to start jumping into bills. So be aware. And as far as I know, we're supposed to be on the floor at 11 o'clock. That concludes it. Thank you.